The wide receiver position has become the league winning position in fantasy football in today's pass heavy NFL. And you want to target wide receivers that have elite upside. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing a few wide receivers that bring the exact opposite of that. These are wide receivers I'm looking to avoid like the bubonic plague in this year's fantasy drafts. I did a similar video for running backs. I'll have that linked in the description below. Make sure to check that one out. But let's dive right in with the first wide receiver on this list, and that is newly paid Garrett Wilson. If you watched my running backs video, you know I had Breece Hall as one of my fades. Like I said then, I'm not doubting the talent of either of these Jets players. I'm doubting the offensive situation they find themselves in. First of all, you have Justin Fields at quarterback now, who does not consistently produce impressive passing numbers to really support a wide receiver one in fantasy. And all indications from this offseason and training camp are pointing to this Jets team really looking to establish the run under new head coach Aaron Glenn. And why would they not when Aaron Glenn firsthand witnessed the success a team can find through the run during his time in Detroit? And he's going to hope to replicate that with guys like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Justin Fields, especially in the red zone. And that's going to hurt Wilson's touchdown totals and really cap his fantasy ceiling. And look at this Jets wide receiver room. Like, come on, man. Opposing defenses are going to double team Garrett Wilson every week, and he'll still find ways to make plays because he is a gamer, but it won't be easy. And while I think Garrett Wilson may pick up a bunch of receptions throughout the season, if you look at a set over under on totals for touchdowns and yards for this season, they're drastically lower than all the wide receivers going in the first 3 rounds. And with that third round price tag, Wilson is probably your wide receiver 2 and maybe even your wide receiver 1. With so many factors working against him, I just can't justify drafting him in the first 4 rounds. So Garrett Wilson is seriously a pick that could cost you your chances at a championship run when you look at the players that are going around him. So this next take is either going to be proven right in 3 months' time or it's going to be the biggest clown statement ever made on my channel. He's the second wide receiver that could derail your fantasy season, and that is Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter is going to be an electrifying NFL player, and he's probably going to be a really, really, really good rookie. But I'm not sure if he can be a valuable enough fantasy asset to provide a significant return on investment for where his current ADP puts him in the 6th round of PPR drafts. Everything we've heard from Jacksonville since he's been drafted has indicated that he is going to be given the opportunity to play both sides of the ball. He's currently listed as the wide receiver 2 and the cornerback 4 on the depth chart. And new Jags head coach Liam Cohen has said he expects Travis Hunter to be on the field for 80% of their offensive snaps. So while all this may sound super assuring that he's going to be given ample opportunities, we're still constantly questioning his role on the team. And I don't think this is what's going to happen. Like, the Jags had the dead last ranked pass defense in the NFL last season and the second worst defensive unit as a whole. Their secondary was a clear and obvious need going into this year's draft, and arguably Travis Hunter is a better cornerback talent than a wide receiver talent. So what I think is going to happen is that the Jags are going to realize that Travis Hunter can still make a huge difference for this team playing full-time corner, and they're still going to plug him into the offense for certain plays. And it's not like they're desperate for a wide receiver 1 when they already have an elite wide receiver 1 in BTJ. So even if I'm wrong about that, even if Travis Hunter is going to be playing a bunch of offense and not full-time corner, 80% of offensive snaps is super unrealistic unless he's solely playing wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. last year as a rookie played just under 80% of offensive snaps last year as the team's wide receiver 1, and that was playing in all 17 games. So you have to factor in the increased injury probability with Travis Hunter if he's going to be playing both offense and defense every single week. And I know you have to take some risks to find success in fantasy football, but there are safer risks who possess very high ceilings to be taken around the same ADP as Travis Hunter. So you have guys like Teteroa McMillan, Caleb Johnson, George Pickens, Bo Nix, Jordan Addison, and the list honestly just continues to go on and on around that part of drafts. And if Travis Hunter is a legit top 15 wide receiver fantasy option, I'll accept I was wrong and I'll be all over it next summer, but I'm not taking the chance this summer. So wide receivers like this could bring you sorrow this season, but let me bring you triumph. My fantasy football draft guide is now available to the public. This guide will have all my rankings, notes, projections, and so much more. As a computer scientist, I've created advanced AI and machine learning models on top of my countless hours of research that could give you the winning edge this season. Secure your guide by emailing me, messaging me on X, or just commenting down below. The price you pay today is the price you lock in for the rest of your life. So as I increase the prices, my channel grows and I introduce new, more advanced models every summer, you pay what you pay today. Since this is the first summer on Yam Talks, I'll be giving out one guide every video for the rest of the summer. All you have to do is subscribe, like this video, and tell us what wide receivers you're fading in this year's drafts in the comments below. And a week from today, I will choose a winner from your comments. So with all that out the way, let's move on to the third wide receiver on this list. And here's a player who's also going right around where Travis Hunter is going in drafts, and that is Jalen Waddle. So Jalen Waddle finished as a top 12 PPR wide receiver 3 years ago in 2022. He's still being drafted with the hopes of him replicating a season like that. The truth is he hasn't cracked a top 30 season-long wide receiver finish in either of his past 2 seasons. And last year, he was a wide receiver 46. So yeah, Tua was out for a solid chunk of last year, but Tyreek Hill still managed to finish as a wide receiver 18, and Jonnu Smith was a tight end 4, and Devon Achane was the RB5. So this offense was not great, but it did find some success in fantasy. And if we look at the season before that, when Tua played all 17 games, Tyreek was a wide receiver 2, and Waddle was a wide receiver 34. So the truth is that Jalen Waddle is not really a vital piece to this offense like he once was, and he's not a very dependable fantasy option. And you also have a scary weekly truth that Tua is one head injury away from missing multiple weeks, and hate to say it, but potential career-ending injury. So we've already seen how negative an effect this Dolphins wide receiver room has with an injured Tua, and Waddle does suffer the most out of the core. So there are just too many wide receivers in this area of the drafts I'm way happier drafting. So you got guys like J-Mo, again, Ted McMillan, George Pickens, Rome Odunze, Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison. Maybe Waddle has a bounce back year this year, but I'm not betting the house on it. Next up, speaking of head injuries, we have Saints wide receiver Chris Olave. Only last year, Chris Olave was going in the 2nd and 3rd rounds of fantasy drafts, but I'm fully fading him this year. Between 2020 and 2024, Olave has racked up 5 separate concussions, 2 of those being in a 3-week span last fall. So those head injuries last season kept him out of 9 games, and in 2 of the 8 games he did play, he had fewer than 10 snaps. The unfortunate truth is, again, like Tua, he is one head injury away from missing a lot of time. And we can look beyond the concussions here. The Saints offense is going to be quarterbacked by either Tyler Shaw or Spencer Rattler this year. And respectfully, I do not believe either of these guys are going to impress the Saints enough for them not to take a quarterback in next year's draft class. So basically, I'm just saying the Saints offense is not going to be that good this year. They're not going to find ways to score a lot of points. And again, like the last 2 players on the list, I'm way more inclined to take guys going around Olave like Pickens, like Addison and Rome Odunze. I just don't think either of these young quarterbacks are going to be able to fuel Olave's fantasy production, and they're not going to be putting up a lot of points, and touchdowns are vital for a wide receiver, especially going somewhere like the 7th round in drafts. All right, so if you're drafting this next player, we need to have a serious talk because we should not be touching him, and that is Brandon Ayuk. So it baffles me to see Brandon Ayuk going between rounds 7 and 9 in sleeper drafts. I believe his ADP is much lower in ESPN drafts, but across most platforms, his average ADP still puts him around the 9th round. Fellas, it's been a year since Ayuk tore both his ACL and MCL, and I should say it's not even been a year since he tore his ACL and MCL last year in week 7. He's not getting reps in pads in training camp at this very moment, and he's expected to start the season on the PUP list. So we're most likely not going to see Ayuk take the field until early October at the earliest. And you may argue that Rashee Rice is also coming off a knee injury, and we probably won't see him play till October because of a likely suspension. Yet he's still being drafted in the 4th and 5th round. But these are completely different scenarios. Ayuk suffered a much more significant knee injury a whole month after Rashee Rice. And Rashee Rice is currently a full participant at training camp. And Rashee Rice was the wide receiver 2 in all of fantasy prior to his injury. So we can't sit here and seriously compare the two. On top of that, Ayuk is the most talented wide receiver in San Francisco, but this team does not run through him. The Niners will find ample success with George Kittle hopefully a healthy Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, who just had a breakout year, and first round, second year wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, who was really heating up at the end of last season. So let's not draft a player who's going to miss at least a quarter of the season and may not even be himself till more than halfway through the season. And if you want to add upside to your wide receiver room at this stage of drafts, target healthy guys that possess that upside like Ricky Pearsall and like Emeka Egbuka. So lastly, I got 3 wide receivers to be wary of drafting. These are kind of like honorable mentions that I'm not going to dive as deep into. And first we have Jerry Jeudy. So the main argument with Jerry Jeudy here is that the Browns are supposed to be atrocious this year, having the lowest win total set in Vegas currently. And no doubt we're going to see a QB carousel this season with Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, and everyone they got. And Jeudy will likely rack up some yards, but don't expect a lot of touchdowns. And that's, again, really important for a fantasy wide receiver. And if we're being honest, Jerry Jeudy has been very underwhelming most of his NFL career outside of last season. Jameis Winston, being the gunslinger he is, really produced a very solid fantasy season for Jerry Jeudy last year. And I think that's inflating his ADP big time into the 7th round of drafts. So I'm not touching Jerry Jeudy this year. And the next wide receiver we got is Deebo Samuels. Simply put, Deebo is not the elite wide receiver he once was. And if he was, the Niners would not be so ready to trade him with Ayuk injured. Deebo was a wide receiver 44 in PPR formats last season, and that rushing upside he used to bring to fantasy is going to be seriously capped on a Washington team with Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson. I think he is going to make some huge plays for the Commanders in real life, but I'm not rostering him in fantasy. And then last, we have a player I'm switching up on after singing his praises over the last 2 months, and that's Chris Godwin. So Godwin had an undisclosed second surgery on his ankle this offseason. And furthermore, some recent images have popped up on social media of his ankle looking honestly just kind of cooked. And now he's expected to start the season on the PUP list. On top of all that, you have Bucks first round pick Emeka Egbuka blowing everyone away at training camp. So even when Godwin comes back, he may not command a large enough target volume to be an elite fantasy option. So there you have it, wide receivers to avoid like the plague in this year's drafts. I'll be pumping out a lot more fantasy content over the next few weeks, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.